Chapter 3: The 6-hour pause that saved Israel. Wars are not always decided by victories. Sometimes they are decided by hesitation. On October 9th, 1973, in the shattered landscape of the Golan Heights, the fate of Israel balanced on a window of time so narrow it could be measured in hours. 6 hours. That was all it took. By the morning of October 9th, the Israeli defense of the Golan Heights was nearing collapse. Tank crews had been fighting for nearly 3 continuous days. Many vehicles were damaged beyond repair. Ammunition stocks were critically low. Entire platoons had been reduced to a single operational tank. Some commanders later admitted the truth. If the Syrians had pushed forward one more time, there would have been nothing left to stop them. Behind the front line, there were no prepared defenses, no secondary armored formations, no reserves positioned for immediate counterattack, only exhausted men and broken machines. Israel's survival depended on what the enemy would do next. The Syrian perspective. From the Syrian command's viewpoint, the situation looked very different. Their forces had advanced deep into the Golan Heights. They had shattered Israeli forward positions. Their armored divisions had inflicted enormous losses. But they had also paid a terrible price. By October 9th, Syrian formations had lost over 500 tanks. Crews were exhausted. Communications were breaking down. Commanders struggled to understand the true scale of Israeli resistance. Most critically, Syrian intelligence misread what they were seeing. A dangerous illusion. When Israeli technicians managed to repair and send forward 15 damaged tanks, the effect was disproportionate. Those tanks appeared suddenly, firing aggressively, maneuvering boldly. From the Syrian observation posts, it looked like something far worse, the beginning of a full Israeli counteroffensive. Syrian commanders believed fresh reserves had arrived en masse. They feared being drawn into a trap, an armored envelopment that would cut off their spearhead deep inside enemy territory. This fear was reinforced by doctrine. Soviet-style armored warfare emphasized momentum, but also caution against overextension without secure flanks. And on the Golan Heights, Syrian flanks were increasingly exposed. What Syrian commanders didn't know was devastatingly simple. There were no reserves. There was no counteroffensive. There were only minutes of survival left. At approximately midday on October 9th, Syrian High Command issued the order: pause the advance. Reorganize. Regroup. It was meant to last a few hours. 6 hours. To refuel. To redistribute ammunition. To reassess Israeli strength. In any other war, under any other circumstances, it would have been a reasonable decision. In this war, it was fatal. Those 6 hours allowed Israel to do what it had been desperately trying to do since the first shots of the war: mobilize its reserves. Time is the ultimate weapon. Israel's military doctrine depended on rapid reserve activation. But reserve units needed time. Time to reach bases, draw equipment, repair vehicles, and move to the front. Until that moment, they hadn't had it. Now, suddenly, they did. Transport aircraft landed nonstop. Mechanics worked through the night. Crews were assembled from survivors, trainees, and officers pulled from rear units. Broken tanks were revived by cannibalizing wrecks. Every minute mattered. And for the first time since October 6th, time was working for Israel. For Israeli defenders, the pause was barely noticeable at first. Then something strange happened. The horizon stopped moving. No new tanks appeared. No new assaults formed. Artillery fire slowed. Veteran commanders realized what this meant. The enemy had stopped. Morale surged, not because victory was assured, but because survival suddenly seemed possible. That psychological shift was decisive. Soldiers who had been fighting on instinct alone now believed they might live through the day. When the advance resumed. When Syrian forces resumed limited operations later that day, the battlefield had changed. Israeli numbers were increasing. Defensive lines were stabilizing. Air support began to appear in meaningful numbers. What had been a collapsing defense became a stubborn, layered resistance. The moment for a decisive breakthrough was gone. From defense to counteroffensive. Within 48 hours, Israel transitioned from survival to retaliation. New armored formations entered the fight. Syrian units, already weakened, now faced coordinated Israeli attacks supported by air power and artillery. The same terrain that had slowed the Syrian advance now worked against them. By October 11th, Israeli forces were pushing eastward. By October 13th, they were within artillery range of Damascus. The war had reversed direction. Military historians still debate whether the Syrian pause was inevitable. Some argue Syrian forces were simply exhausted. Others point to logistical limits. Some blame poor intelligence. But nearly all agree on one point. That 6-hour pause saved Israel from defeat, a decision studied in war colleges. It is now taught as a textbook example of how overestimating the enemy can be as dangerous as underestimating them. Momentum in warfare is perishable. Operational pauses can erase tactical superiority. Wars are not only fought with weapons, they are fought with decisions. Israel won the Battle of the Golan Heights, but the cost was profound. The shock of the surprise attack shattered public confidence in leadership. The belief in invincibility, carefully built after 1967, collapsed overnight. The cost of survival. In 1974, Golda Meir's government resigned. Intelligence agencies were restructured. Military doctrine was rewritten. Complacency became taboo. Israel survived, but it emerged changed. The Valley of Tears proved that training can defeat numbers. The 6-hour pause proved something darker. Wars can be lost not by being weaker, but by stopping too soon. The final lesson. For Syria, hesitation erased the advantage of overwhelming force. For Israel, those 6 hours became the thin line between existence and catastrophe. History rarely turns on single moments, but sometimes it does.